let me tell y'all something. I'm really not into conspiracy theories. I don't know. I just feel like they're a waste of time, right? But sometimes the stuff just lines up in ways that you like. That's not a conspiracy no more. Like that's a fact.
Today, I hope we have some fun looking at this girl here. She's known as Flower Tower. If you've been with my channel for a while now, I don't know, probably about 8 months ago, I made a video about her. I had my regulars every once in a while go, hey, try to debunk this. Whenever they did so, I found out that she just makes a whole bunch of shorts and stuff too, and that I kind of got frustrated a little bit because looking through her first 5 or 6 videos that I watched, it didn't really have anything that it felt like I was supposed to debunk or do anything. Although, yeah, she shows that she's a racist and so on. And one of the times there, she tried to call Caucasian people caves, which once I got into it a little bit more, I found that she says that in about 1 out of 3 videos. She's got a real issue. And most of her videos are either her putting a new hair hat on like here that's done to the left, or getting some new glasses or getting whatever and showing a picture of herself and trying to get an affirmation back from people on how pretty she looks and things like that. But because I went through that trouble one time, she keeps showing up in my sidebar. Yeah, it sucks. And so I get to hear things like this. Well, this one stood out to me, so I thought I might actually look at it and see what she's saying on this one. The name of this is called I'm Officially a Hotep. Maybe the original Native Americans were black. Now, to anybody that's been into this topic whatsoever, I know that makes 0 sense, because the Hoteps are trying to claim that the ancient Caucasian Egyptians were black somehow. And of course, the ones that are doing this are West Sub-Saharan Bantus that didn't even know Egypt existed. But you've also seen my recent videos where after they did the Cleopatra debacle, and somebody pointed out the fact that they're not trying to just say Cleopatra, which was a Macedonian Greek, was black, but they make Ptolemy, her father, somehow, from, being a general of under Alexander the Great, and that family line that happened there, they tried to make him a Bantu. But then they also noticed that, well, all the Egyptians are also Bantus, except for their help. Those look kind of like the people that live in Egypt today. It's kind of strange, and I was like, well, if you think that's it that they want to claim, take a look at this. So I've done a series now, and I think we're at 11 or 12, I forget. Always when I try to read these off to you or come to mind, I seem to miss 1 or 2 here. Well, let's see if we can do this. Well, one way I won't forget the Amerindians is that she's trying to claim them right here. And of course there's Egypt and the Hoteps. And then we know about the Macedonians. But I've done another video where they try to claim that they were the ancient Greeks somehow, because the Greeks said that the people, they themselves used to be barbarous back in the day, way back when, but we've become this civilization. And because they said that the ancient Amazigh Berbers of North Africa that are Caucasians, they also tried to claim that. But then later they tried to claim the Moors also. Yeah. And then I've shown you a recent video where they tried to claim that they were the ancient Sumerians. Right. Yeah, so they have a real problem. Olmecs, Amerindians, and believe it or not, they feel like they don't self-expose when they do this in any way, and they also don't feel like it's a problem that they're doing this and offending every single people they try to claim. Whether it's the dark-skinned Ethiopians that are about half admixed living in Ethiopia, or what we call Ethiopia today, which is, up until Herodotus' times, never the effect. I've got a recent video on about it showing you, and even Fortress of Lugh got in on the idea because he was like shots fired on Cleopatra. Well, check it out. Ethiopia never meant the people you think it does. In fact, that place was called Abyssinia. You can look all this up, but the original mythology on this is these are people that lived at the far east and far west of the world, where the sun rises and sets, and it actually didn't have nothing to do with black people. But let this be known too, that the black people that she's related to, West Sub-Saharan Bantu type people, aren't related at all to the Khoisan people, or any Nilotics or Horners, or the Ethiopians that we call today anyhow. But they try to adopt in anybody with darker skin, and you're fixing to see this right in front of you. The reason I thought I would do this video here is because she's kind of showing you how she came out as a Hotep just here recently, 2 days ago I get. So this just came out, popped up in my thing, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's this? I'm officially a Hotep now. So I thought I'd take a look at it, and instantly it's very self-exposing. And this shows you where they get this idea, and a cargo cult and everything, and we'll talk about that later as we go into it. But she wants to let you know, well, sometimes conspiracy theories seem to look at it. So she's claimed that a lot of times, and she'll do this a couple of times in the video, that she doesn't agree with any of the Hotep stuff and so on. But yet she still tries to call Caucasian caves as if the blacks were somehow the advanced people, and that she really is a racist whenever she does this type of thing. It would be if we had a new nickname called Dung Hut, and we called that to black people. Which one would you rather be called? The Latin word for black, or a dung hut dweller? Let's just go ahead and get into this.
And it's just scary to acknowledge. And let me explain exactly what I'm talking about to y'all. So a couple months ago, I was having a conversation with this African guy, and he was talking about, you know how Indians worship that blue god? I forget his name, but I'm going to find a picture of it and put it in this video, right?
She's also going to tell you in a minute she has no idea how the conversation got there, but we all know how the conversation got there. In fact, the conversation is always about things like that, whether it's white jealousy or making up lies about what black people used to do or who they're connected to. Here I believe we're looking at Lord Shiva, or one of his connotations of Lord Shiva. So it's almost like she's not even grabbing the right picture here or whatever off of it. You know, it could be Varuna, but we can't see the back of his head to see if he's got a head on the back of his head, so on like that. I've shown just recently in a series of vids that I did that the genetics of India, if you'll look into it, and that it actually proves the Aryan hypothesis as being true. Whereas 5 years ago, whenever I did this, I showed a video of them formally, and it seems like the same group now that's acknowledging it, by the way, where they were totally against the idea and it's a lie and so, but genetics doesn't lie. So genetics came out, and apparently there are a few papers about which actually shows you these step ancestry people coming in at exactly the same time as the wheel shows up, along with chariots, along with cattle, along with everything else, and then the Indus Valley civilization, and then bloom, oh, look what happens over here. And the fact that they've gone into it and realized that Sanskrit, that language there, is part of the Proto-Indo-European linguistics, connecting all the way from Sanskrit to ancient Irish and all the ones in between. It's an amazing connection. Also, it shows you that Indra is called at least 4 times in the Mahabharata a blonde-haired man, and so on too. Did a recent video about this. There's another one that come up showing you another twist on it, and this idea of what the South India people were like, and how there's this ancient tale of a monkey god, and how it all hooks up to this mythology that shows that Indra went down and gave Nala a special hug And in doing so, they began to be able to speak, and then shortly after, they made the bridge to Sri Lanka and so on. But that's for a separate video. But she wants to bring up India here. So I know she said Native Americans, and those are called Indian because of the concept that Columbus, whenever he went headed here, was trying to find an easier way to go all the way around to India. A lot of people tried to think he was going to fall off the edge of the world. All these silly stories. I've went into explanations about each one of them. But he would have run into the Orient first and had to skirt around through the Orient and all the islands there to end up even making it to India. But he thought he was looking at Indians. Yeah, because south in the Caribbean where he showed up, there were actually some darker skinned native islandy looking Indians. Oh no. And they were preying upon the lighter skinned people that are there. And because he was looking at India and he knew there were Aryans in the north, which has been shown by genetics in that recent video I just showed, and south there was darker people, he may have made a different connotation to this. Oh, blacks have heard this idea, and because they're darker than Columbus, they must have actually been West Sub-Saharan Bantu, and they claim we, just like they tried to on the Olmecs, which I've got an old video showing you somebody taking a park ranger from the Olmec Park and taking a picture of him when people are talking to him and showing a half Olmec statue and half his face and flipping it back and forth, and you can tell, oh, that guy looks like he's one of these statues right here. And he's not black. He's a Mexican with fattish features on his face. The Olmecs kind of look that way, but look, we don't need to get into all that. What she's claiming here is that, you know, that Caucasian phenotype, blue god that we're showing over here, they painted him blue, not just all the tan color that they show all their gods, showing you that it's connected to that Aryan concept. No. That he used to be black, and that they don't want that. See, it's the big secret. Well, if that's true, then they wouldn't have Kali. I mean, she's drawn as pitch black. But of course, that's got a whole mythology with it. You know, Kali Mar, like in the Indiana Jones movie, right? Let's get into this more.
This guy was talking about that God was initially a black person, but they didn't want to worship black people, so they painted it blue and so and so and so, right? I don't know how we even got to this topic. Now, when
she knows exactly how they got to that topic. These are the topics they want to talk about. So frequently, it's on their mind constantly. Any way they can lie is on their mind constantly. Whenever you become an Afrocentric and get caught up in the cult, then you just really, really embrace it. And then next thing you know, you're saying all kinds of foolish things and making all kinds of claims she's about to do now. Oh, by the way, that's not dander for something. That's actually a sparkle image thing that she's got on, trying to glamorize herself a little bit more. But let me just state, if we took off her hair hat there, the Caucasian glasses, a little bit of makeup around her eyes, if you can do that mentally right now, you realize that, well, her hair's really, other than that twisted in mop, just like over there that's on the right side of her head, which is a little nap. And so if you saw her looking like that, maybe to explain to you a little bit why they lust after the Caucasian phenotype of hair and things like that they do. But I guess that's really a side topic, but I just looked up and saw that the right side of her head isn't done twisted up, but the left is. Therefore, if we just made the other half like the other half, you may get an understanding of what she looked like if she didn't have the hair hat on, especially if you take off the glasses. There's not really much sexual dimorphism between black males and females, but let's continue. Oh, another odd thing here, she has a red bottom lip and a brown top lip. And I know that there's a connection to that too, but if you look over in the Congo, that's a lot less than you'd see it in America, for a reason. So this guy is just saying this crap or whatever, and of course it's crazy. blacks should just say something like, you know why the moon's pale? They painted it pale. It used to be black, but they don't like that. That's why they went to the moon. Yeah, it's about what it's equal to. It's just so foolishly stupid. You're like, well, look at his phenotype. Regardless of the color they paint him, you're too stuck on skin color and freaking out. But if you get into India deeply, the Aryans came down in northern India in the Indus Valley situation, and they ran into people that were all south, which are known as the Dacius, and they're dark. And that's the whole thing on the Mahabharata and everything coming on. And now there's a caste system there, and like I said in my recent video, it shows you the secondary caste system getting mad, knowing that their top caste system supposedly comes from the steppe, a Russia area way up there, and they know it now. And one group of them is talking about kicking them out, so the ones that are about 2/3 Aryan instead of full Aryan can end up taking over. Knock, knock.
He initially said that. I was like, yeah, okay, buddy, like, sure, right? And again, I don't know how we got on this topic, but
she knows how they got on the topic, and she's all like, yeah, buddy, sure, but it works on her. So apparently just 2 weeks ago or so, she was all like, yeah, no, we were Bantus from West Africa and didn't know any of this existed. All of a sudden, watch the change. By the way, if you're wondering when Native Americans were black comes in, it comes at the end of a long journey of stupid. Join me, won't you?
we were probably discussing how literally everybody in the world hates black people. And I know I have said in the past, like, this gotta be a simulation. There's no reason why everybody in the world hates black people when we've done nothing to them. Like
she thinks that claiming their history and claiming we were them and everything is not anything. We didn't do nothing. Or that causing 9 times the amount of crime didn't do nothing. It's crazy what they seem to think isn't nothing, and they don't understand why people don't like black people. But she does explain to you that she realized people don't like us. Why is that? Well, if you remember from the video I did on her months ago, she was trying to claim that she doesn't know what you're talking about when you're saying black people are claiming Spanish food was created by West Sub-Saharans. I don't know no Panuzo, no Muzo. Well, there are black people. Maybe I heard of them once. They said that we was. So that's what you be talking about. I don't know, and tries to play it off silly. That was the one that I could find at that time that I felt like making a video about, or even had enough something for me to stand on to make one. But since then, I've seen her try to call Caucasians caves about 1 out of 3 videos. It's not exposing enough to me to do a video on or so on. It's the reason I picked this one, though, finally, is that she's self-exposing, telling you that she's a Hotep now, and trying to explain to you how that happened. It'll just show, it'll come to light, to fruition, it will flower, it will turn into butter. You'll be able to see this happen. I mix all this stuff up, throw it in the oven, pull it back out, here's a cake. In fact, I'm a Hotep, and maybe the original Native Americans were black somehow. Let's go.
Something is just not adding up here, right? So that's probably how we got on that topic, right? Now, that was months ago. I didn't pay that no mind. I was just like, whatever. Because, and I told him, I was like, you sound like a Hotep. You know them African Americans who be like, actually, Europeans is actually black. You know, like, he sounded like one.
So she knows that the Hoteps don't just claim something from Hotep, which is Egypt. She knows that the Hotep people have gone crazy to the point they're trying to, actually, the ancient Europeans were black. Everybody was black. Except for ourselves. Never want to talk about West Sub-Saharan Bantus. So they're reaching out at people they aren't related to and didn't know existed and everything, trying to make up these lies. It's real self-exposing, especially if you know, you're like, oh my God, this is just terrible. It's just a mental sickness where you're just rambling on. It's like you're a 4-year-old trying to tell your mom and dad about Santa Claus, and it's like, look, I think they know about Santa Claus. You're going to figure that out as you mature a little bit, maybe.
man. I was like, yeah, all right. Now, let's fast forward to today. I was laying in bed, scrolling on TikTok, and I scrolled past this video that this Filipino woman had made. So somebody had left some comment like, oh, why are y'all so light, whatever, right? And this Filipino woman responded, and she was talking about how the Philippines were colonized by Spaniards. So
now, I'm not sure if that's the reason. It seems pretty flimsy on the idea that, well, why are you so light? Who the hell would be asking that of a Filipino person? I mean, it sounds like a little false, trumped up little idea, but she does get to the point. And then, of course, this Filipino woman made a video where she's going to say some things in it. So apparently there was an interaction like this, but it just seems flimsy that it went the way that she's trying to come across. Oh, it happened like this.
Some of them have lighter skin because of that, and she was talking about how some of them have Spanish last names because the Spaniards forced their names on them. All of this stuff, right? And in this video, she mentions how the original Filipinos were black, right? So at first, she tries to change the way things really are. Whenever the Spaniards ended up marrying a lot of these Filipino ladies, and then the Filipinos liked these people so much, like a cargo cult. You see, it's like a spaceman came down, and then all of a sudden everybody went ooh-ah over them, and they wanted those names and to connect themselves to it. You don't think that's the effect? Blacks are doing it currently today. Whose names are they using? Don't make up a lie on how that goes, or that you would like the name Nfufu back, because you can easily name yourself anything. You're choosing for a reason not to, definitely. But of course, she's already mentioned the colonizer idea, which for African Americans is supposed to get them all brunted up. Strangely, whenever if you go over to the Congo, they want to be colonized more because half of this is still bushmen and primitives. Yeah, sure, there's a few places that are done. Can you just do all of it for us, white man? You wouldn't believe how many millions of dollars has been spent over there and how blacks don't seem to spend a cent. We've got millionaire, billionaire basketball players and everything, and how often do they throw something at it? Or people like Black Lives Matter instead of buying her another mansion. It's crazy. that doesn't throw me off because she's like, yeah, you know, black people migrate out of Africa. Yeah, we all know that, right?
In actuality, black people never migrated out of Africa. Ever. Even in the ones that we know were failed attempts or all this other stuff, the people that we know of as black people never migrated out of Africa. One easy way to prove that is that they've got an unknown ghost hominid up to 19% of their DNA genetics that no one else on the planet has. It's something that's a hominid too. It's nothing that's any bit or like a Denisovan or Neanderthal. No, not at all. And not above that in any way. It's a hominid. They know by the way that it lays out. But nobody else has this. It's like a Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA that everybody out of Africa has, and they don't have any of. Well, secret is they were using the Yoruba as a 0 point, and now they find, well, the Yoruba's got a little bit of Neanderthal. So actually they have up to 1% Neanderthal because they have 22 to 38% Caucasian DNA, but roughly a third. And so Caucasians are known to have 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. And so if they've got 2.5, 3, and you get 1/3 of that, you almost get 1%, don't you? So it's hilarious when blacks have called that. They try to call people Neanderthals in caves whenever they've got that too. But far more than that, they've got Caucasian admix. We'll get into that a little later again whenever it comes up as a decent topic about Aslar man and perhaps who was still a hominid all the way up until real close to modern times. Join me.
I was not surprised to hear her say, oh, like the first Filipinos were black, because, I mean, I believe in evolution. I believe in the out of Africa theory. I believe that the first people evolved in Africa and then they migrated out. So that was not like a shocker for me, right?
Well, again, the people that ever walked out of Africa were not black. And of course, blacks have this problem with we. So next thing you know, you've got Bantus trying to walk out. The Bantu didn't exist before 4400 BC. All prior to that, like Iwaliru and so on, show you that they were still a 4-foot tall, small-brained hominid species up until 4400 BC, where they were interacted by somebody who carries E1b genetics. E's derived by Eurasian Caucasian CT, by the way. This has to do with the North Africans that lived above them, who were seafarers and everything. This is well before the Phoenicians and their route too, in the same situation. But in this endeavor, we have her trying to think that black people walked out. She's going to actually say this in a minute, so it's not like I'm trying to conjecture it. Black people walked out of Africa, and then as they walked to Asia, they just magically turned into Asians. This is her idea of the way things went down. Whenever reality is, sub-Saharans never went out of sub-Sahara. Surely not ever out of Africa. The people that came out of Africa were a Caucasian type people. And whenever they did, there's a bifurcation or a spreading from the Oriental type people and the Caucasians at roughly 38,000 BC, 38,000 BC, showing you at that time, well, they had Denisovan admixed by that, and also integration by somebody who left them with the eye folds that an Oriental type person, the lady she's going to show you in a minute, will have them. And so there's a variation on a theme, and the holotype of what came out of Africa was a pre-proto-Caucasoid, never a Negroid type people, but she wants to believe it's blacks that went out of Africa and then somehow from experiencing snow magically turned into Caucasians and Orientals. I have a recent video showing you that the out of Africa theory has been thrown out the door. In fact, I have a series of them, because we went to the first one I did is like, hey, you've heard about out of Africa. Well, guess what? Here's 2.0. Now I'm telling you about that, but that's not it. I'm showing you the 3.0 version of it. Then I showed you a new paper which changed it into 3.0 or 4.0, or we'll call it 3.2. And then I made one that was about 4.0, but lo and behold, a new paper came out because of looking at the genetics of the black people having 19% unknown hominid and all these different ones, and that there is no out of Africa theory anymore, no mitochondrial Eve situation, all that bullshit's dead. People have separate origins from each other from back before we would ever call it human. Even though they've tried to adopt in not Homo sapiens sapiens, but Homo sapiens, and now all these homo forms, and try to say, well, that was a human. Why'd they do that? Well, because some people are actually hybrids of that situation right now. So then you'd have to say not fully human if they don't become more inclusive to that point. We'll look into that a little later when it becomes important. Gotta let this go.
But in my mind, I always had this concept of, evolution taking a long ass time, right? So of course, in my mind, I'm thinking by the time folks walked all the way to Asia, at that point they were Asian or whatever, right? So
I don't know if you're thinking about right now, if you were at the point of heading out of Africa, or even put yourself in a sub-Saharan state, and you have to walk all the way across Africa and then hit the Nile and then follow it north and go all the way up to the Delta and then take a right and then come out of there and then hit the Fertile Crescent and whip around it and then hit the ocean over by India and then follow the edge of India and the ocean and go all the way to Oceania and then head north and end up about where Philippines is. If you think that that's going to take so much time, that somehow Negroids are going to magically turn into Orientals, but that's what she's indicating she thought in her mind. Now, in a minute, she's going to mention that she's a researcher and a scientist and all this. Hey, one good kudos to her. She did recently graduate. But after listening to her, a lot of that has connections to affirmative action, doesn't it? Let's continue.
Let me get on her video. Matter of fact, I must show y'all her video. And I want y'all to pay attention to when she mentions the Negritos, because that's what had me like, oh, let me look into this.
How did you all get so light? Where is the color? Where are the dark-skinned people from your region? Over there. So in the Philippines, we have very complicated past. The first people who inhabited Philippines are black people. During the Ice Age, a lot of people from Africa migrated all over Asia.
When she's talking about people migrating out of Africa, these are people that science has proven long ago and repeatedly are not kin, not related to Khoisan, Nilotics, or especially not West Sub-Saharan Bantus. But you'll hear her hear this and then try to claim we later. Now, this question is posed right there at the top. Oh, it's got the stamp over it. How did y'all get so light? Where's the color? Where are the dark-skinned people from your region over there? Now, this is a question asked by a guy named Crazy Black Max. So I think we can realize that this was a bait and switch situation here, and Crazy Black Max is already crazy enough, and he's got that, well, Negrito means we. I did a video on Negritos here, I don't know, 4 years ago, back whenever that guy who's trolling again on my vids like he's brand new again, bringing up the same old stuff that totally debunked. Even got videos on it directly from him saying it and then me putting out a video, and he's coming on all like he's brand new and mentioning the same stuff again. It's hilarious. Now he's got another account with another name, this Essence something, but whenever it shows up in my deal, quite often it'll be showing that same debunked name from old, and when you click on it, it goes to that, but now his name's changed. I'm hiding peekaboo. He thinks he's fooling somebody. It's hilarious. So I keep mentioning, remember whenever I told you that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? So whenever this lady says something about people came out of Africa and went all over, other than a Caucasoid form coming out and spreading over the world, there was also a form that came out that went across the islands and so on, at least in 2 different waves, because they're not related, to the east. One ended up powering over there in Irian Jaya, or New Guinea as we know of it, and actually made it across into Australia. But the black people in South India aren't really related to them, and the Papua New Guineans are kinda halfly related to the Australoids, showing you that a lot has happened to them since that point too. But of course there's a whole lot of light-skinned people all over this area and up through. In a minute she's going to mention China like 4 times, and the reason she really likes to mention that word in the middle of the group, which she said, because when you wait to see her open her eyes, she's got a lot of Oriental admix, and probably just looking in the mirror she notices it. Also, look at her hair. Tell me that her hair has something to do with black people. Right. But black people, whenever they're trying to believe a lie, can overlook all kinds of things and try to connect themselves. Now, is it this girl that doesn't know anything and doesn't know that, well, black people aren't black people and the Khoisan aren't related to Bantu and this, that, and the other, and the people you're talking about aren't related to either one of them, or any of them actually? And therefore, by you putting this crap out to a guy that's an Afrocentric named Black Max, you may be feeding an engine of stupid. I'd like to think that she's not. Just trying to be straightforward. And whenever she says black people, she's just talking about dark-skinned people, of course. Well, we all had this problem before whenever we called them Negritos, because they're little bitty, short, dwarf, pygmy type people. And we had already seen the pygmies in Africa, and so we tried to make the connection. That's what Negrito means. It means little bitty black person. So they don't want to connect themselves to that because they're so happy about the height they have now. Crazy thing is, you go back in archaeology and there was no shacks or anybody that could even dunk a basketball ever in these people. Oh, the Nilotics are real tall. You're not a Nilotic. You're not related. You didn't breed with them, and that's the reason you're tall either. Whoops.
Of them went to China, India, Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then Philippines. And some of the tribe who inhabited Australia, Indonesia, China, and possibly India found their way to the Philippines. And there was a time that Europeans traveled across the globe, and many countries were colonized by Europeans.
Colonizer. Oh, bad. You know, the fact that everybody is at a higher civilization point, everybody loves it. Yeah, everybody does. It really looks like it's only blacks who turn around and try to whine about it as they're coveting all the stuff that comes from it, and they don't want to go away and leave it. And it's real self-exposing too.
Talking about Canada, America, Australia, and many parts in Asia.
Really basically the known world. And when we got tired of it or didn't see enough in it, or these people could do enough trade that really going to help us out or make the engine run or whatever, with all the Southeast India trading companies and all that stuff, we kind of left it alone at where it was. Kind of found ourselves stretching ourselves a little too thin, and as soon as we had a hiccup, there was going to be a big problem, so we kind of backed off of that. Yeah. But did we back off totally? No, it still goes on. Even though it mentally here in America, it's looked like we backed away from all these primitive type people, believe it or not, we're still sending people out constantly. Missionary type people and stuff, all trying to get it together, because otherwise we wouldn't have the cobalt and things for the batteries that we're trying to make you get rid of a real car for and take on an electric car like it's something brand new. Whenever the first cars that were created were actually electric at the time, but the problem was the battery. And then how we're going to charge it is we got to run this generator, and it takes more gas than the car does whenever it does the whole thing. So it's just a perpetual loop of stupid. But here we are in the perpetual loop of stupid, trying to pretend like that's the better thing. Then you look at the carbon footprint and you're like, man, if these people knew it, because they're the carbon footprint crazy people, there's no way they could even agree to this whatsoever. So you point it out to them and they want to pretend that they didn't hear you. They've got their ears plugged. Let's continue.
So, Philippines were colonized by Spaniards. Back in the day, Spaniards forced many Filipinos to change their last name because apparently their last name is ugly.
No, they looked at that. Here we are with the cult situation of a cargo cult. Whenever the spacemen showed up with all the incredible modern advanced things, they cargo culted on those people, and it didn't take too much before they started changing their name to a name that mimics people. We saw this on the John Frum cult from people in World War II that are out in these islands, which are exactly what we're talking about, by the way, again, and how this cargo cult situation showed up because servicemen from World War II came down with the Seabees and made a quick airstrip that they could drop a bunch of cargo on and use it for a stop waypoint to help us fight through the Battle of Midway and through the South China Sea back to Japan and so on, that we're all familiar with from World War II. And it left behind a people that have this weird belief that their ancestors somehow created all this. The white men stole it all along with the airplanes that apparently come from their ancestors, and therefore they owe us, and they sit around all day building fake airplanes and staring up at the sky hoping somebody drops some cargo again because you owe it to me. Sounds strange as hell, but you get that same idea out of black people, like the girl that started this video, that somehow black people owe white people, and somehow it was their ancestors that did something. Whenever you ask them who, they start pointing at people they didn't even know existed or aren't even related to. It's so self-exposing. It's not funny. but then it gets to the point of comical and they won't quit, and then they double down. What does it take for somebody to turn around from, oh, that's just that Hotep crap, to all of a sudden I'm officially a Hotep? Well, she's showing you how easy it happens.
And hence why there are many Filipinos have Spanish last names. And also, many Filipinos were forced to change their belief into Catholic. Hence why there are over 90% of Catholic people in the Philippines.
No, I guess if you ask the Philippine people, as in general, and not trying to act like she is right now, you'd find that they love that Whytey Cracker Jesus and all the Catholic thing about it, and you couldn't pry it out their hands now if you had to. Of course, this happened in South America too, because we're talking about Portuguese and Spanish, aren't we? Yeah, that's the ones that started off the slave trade that went to the Americas, but there's an Islamic slave trade that lasted well over 900 years before that nobody wants to talk any about because, well, secret is part of it's still going on today. In fact, there's more slaves in Africa than there ever was in the Americas at any time, but they don't want to talk about that either. See, because Whitey man bad. Oh, the one that freed you is propping you up and teaching you everything and giving you access to this incredible spaceman world? What are you trying to pull here? Oh yeah, white man bad. Recent prim fantastic? Look at that hair on this girl and that phenotype there. You can tell that's an Oriental phenotype mix with Filipino Oriental. How much Negritos in that? Well, it's hard to see if there's any really. Let's continue.
If you refuse to change your religion, you will be. And
it's crazy how they keep telling you this kind of thing. Whenever those people didn't want to refuse that religion, they love the spaceman religion. They're in a cargo cult. And they wanted to. In fact, they always tell you this thing or whatever. It's crazy because they're still there. Watch this one video and they killed all of us. Well, first of all, you're saying us, and that's not you. And second of all, they're all still there. So what are you talking about? It's foolish, but that's what they want to pull. But anyhow, so apparently this lady's got a little problem with colonizer situation. But imagine where that island would be, stuck at something like Gilligan's Island, or no, like the people that attacked Gilligan's Island occasionally, the headhunter type people and so on. You want to see what Negritos really look like? Well, first we're going to see what she pretends to show in a minute. Let this lady get through.
the only tribe who did not get forced to change their belief are the Igorot tribes, because they fought the Spaniards and Spaniards were defeated. And also,
I'm not sure if that ever happened. Listen, I'm not deep enough into the Filipino thing to even reference the thing that she's trying to talk about or lie about or whatever. But I'm pretty certain that, just in my mind, the way it went down, what did they do? Catch them whenever there was only a couple hundred of them there and overwhelm them? And then, of course, the Spaniards came back and kicked that ass. There's a reason it's still called the Philippines and not the island of Ook. Let's go.
so there was a time that Spaniards eliminated a lot of Filipino. There was a time.
Sounds like she just said the Filipino eliminated a lot of Spaniards. Swear she just said that and then followed that up with the reverse of it. Well, did they both happen? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many Filipinos were done in such a way, but if they started attacking the Spaniards, they weren't going to put up with that bullshit. To lose a man over stupid, over some prim freaking out, whenever they're cargo culting, and they will be for hundreds of years and to this day.
And that Japanese, Americans, and Chinese took over the Philippines. And that is why many Filipinos have many different skin tone. Because
Had to throw that Americans in there because, yeah, their air base is there and all over those islands and stuff that go along with that, I guess, too. But that's the reason that they're the way they are, that she looks the way that she is. Hey, I'm Irish, and I'm darker than she is. There, just a touch. I'm gonna go out and stay in the sun here this weekend, and then come back and show you again. And I'm like, well ahead of her. But she's gonna tell you about how they like to be pale, and they even use Michael Jackson treatments to try to keep themselves pale now versus their ancient holotype, and why. And she's not going to blame it on their own jealousy and a cargo cult, just like blacks don't. Whenever they try to bleach themselves, she's going to blame it on them, like they're the ones that are handing them the tubes of cream, or gave them the idea. Let's look.
Many Filipinos were married to Spanish or Mexicans, Chinese, Japanese, and...
Now, hold on. A minute ago, they forced you to change your names. But now we're going with this idea that they married a lot of these people, and that's how they got their name. Hey, you know that D&D game that I show every once in a while? One of the guys I used to play with constantly is a Filipino guy. We eventually got on these topics and stuff, and he goes, out of the blue one day, he turned around and he goes, I want to ask you something. What do you know about Filipino people? And I say quite a bit, in some aspects, and others not so much, but yeah, I got a good gist on it. What do you got a question out? Maybe we can help you. And he asked a couple of questions, and I go, okay, I'm going to have to ask you a question to start off my answer to this. What's your last name? And he said, well, it's Ortiz. And I go, okay, you've taken on a Spanish name, so I'm just going to guess now before I spoke, because I didn't want to hurt your feelings or anything. And he goes, oh, you want everything, you just take, you don't know what the hell I look like. And I go, well, you're telling me now. So you're kind of a lighter Filipino type guy. And he goes, yeah, this dude doesn't have an accent or anything. He's been in the Americas for 2 generations. Okay? So, you know, Pinoy, I. No, not necessarily. But Ortiz is connected to the artisans of the ancient Spaniards. So he has this lineage hooked up to some people that came there that were of a upper class that did these things and stuff and everything. Went through the whole deal. I thought it was pretty cool. He did too. Let's continue.
Americans. Now, if you visit provinces in the Philippines, you will see a lot of dark-skinned Filipinos. Now, if we're talking about the original people of the Philippines, which we call them Aitas or Itas or Negritos, they are mostly in the mountains.
Now, do you know any black people that are from the mountains? Well, she's going to tell you that they got chased up in the mountains because at the shore, all kinds of people started lasting. So to preserve themselves, they stayed up in the hills. She also tells you they used to hunt them and so on. Whenever the word hunt might be replaced with try to bring them down out of the mountains, so they don't end up being the problem for all these people we're colonizing. Because once we get them civilization, the one thing that civilization doesn't need is some primitive come running in, throwing sticks at them or causing problems. But of course that's changed into a whole hunting adventure, which has tried to sound like fox hunting, like the Garamontes and how they used to hunt the vile Negro troglodytes, which in a recent video by blacks, they actually tried to claim we was Garamontes. Anybody, believe me, anybody. She looks like she's got downs right now. Let's continue.
In the day, they used to hide and live in the mountain because there were many people in the Philippines who were hunting them. And because they are the most hated and experience a lot of discriminations in the Philippines, they choose to live in the mountain. And the reason why you will see a lot of Filipinos who have whiter skin or fair skin, many of them use whitening product to whiten their skin because many of them were bullied of having dark skin.
This sounds like their own people had a caste system, and the caste system was known how close you are to the spacemen is how light you are. Just like in India, where the caste system almost exactly follows the skin tone of people. Doesn't it? But she's telling you bully. Bully by who? Well, she indicates that it was by Caucasians, but in reality, they started bullying themselves into a caste system. She doesn't like her point in that caste system, But she tells you people used to Michael Jackson light their skin and still do to this day to try to up their caste system idea. Knock, knock.
And some of them, they hate having dark skin, and that's the reason why they force themselves to use whitening products.
Sounds a lot like a lot of blacks we've seen here lately. There's one guy's video, I thought about showing it earlier, then I thought that's just one of those things. It even, to me, looks like a racist piece of crap movie, because they show like Sammy Sosa, and then Sammy Sosa now. Michael Jackson as a kid, Michael Jackson as an adult, Michael Jackson now. Things like this, and keep showing you these pictures of all these people that bleached themselves and have screwed themselves up. And it always seems to be in one way, not the other.
If you have dark skin in the Philippines and if you are born unfortunate, you are more likely to get treated badly and get bullied. Sometimes.
By the Filipinos themselves? Are you blaming yourselves on any of this? Or are you trying to claim this is all because of the Portuguese and Spaniards that named the Philippines, that you still love, along with their Caucasian god, everything they brought to you and everything else? It gets confusing. Let's continue.
In the Philippines, it doesn't really matter if you have white skin or dark skin. If you are rich, people will more likely to bow down to you and respect to you. So really, it's all about money, not.
So, it's crazy how you would contradict yourself sentence after sentence, back, forth, like you're playing tennis with yourself, but dark skin is bullied, and blah, 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 blah. But then again, it's not. If you have money, it doesn't matter whatsoever, so it's not. So which one is it? Well, she's confused, but if you have money, it doesn't matter.
Not necessarily having dark skin, but if you have white skin, you're more likely get treated fairly, and more likely the people will respect you and value you. So
is it looking at that the darker skinned people are the more prim people, and the lighter skinned people are more the advanced civilized spaceman type concept, and then that's a natural thing for you to look at them bifurcating a little bit? Then you have your daughter, and you hope that she marries a lighter skinned husband, and all these situations as you keep giving her bleaching cream. Anybody know this goes on in the Philippines to this day? Let's continue.
How many Filipinos do you think get bullied every day for having dark skin? And
by other Filipinos. Not by these Spaniards that are long gone, people. But you keep witnessing this cargo cult situation in the spaceman, and they want to be like that more. You see that. If they never showed up, it never happened. It's exactly like the cargo cult that I show in the other video, but those people are still primitive because they don't have any interaction past a few times of cargo. But they certainly went from loincloth at best to now wearing Caucasian Goodwill clothes. A lot of them are with rock bands and advertisements on their shirts and stuff, and they tell you they're waiting for John From to come back. Well, what's that? It's a John from Indiana. They gave us some stuff whenever they were here in World War II, and now they've got a religion built around it. They have these people mocking that they're the military, going through all kinds of things. See my video on cargo cults.
And mind you, most people in the Philippines have dark skin. So how did I get so light? Well,
you're not like most people. Uh-oh, you're of that upper class you're claiming in the whole little notch here. Let's continue.
I was born having fair skin. However,
it's not from bleaching. No, not in her case at all.
If I am exposed to the sun, my true color comes out.
So she tans. Like all these other Filipino people who have that magic adaptable melanin. Is she now referring to all the ancient dark-skinned people that weren't Negritos, that were all through these islands, were a tannable people, and because they're living somewhat tropical, wearing something that's basically equal to board shorts and no shoes or anything, that they would be tan, just like I'm Irish, and if I lived on Key West Beach and lived in board shorts all day long, hanging around the shore and the sun, how I would probably get real dark. Or is she trying to infer something else entirely?
Skin will become so dark when I'm exposed to the sun. And during the summertime, you're more likely to see a lot of Filipino wearing a sweater or use umbrella because they are scared of getting dark.
They want to be light, enough to where they actually stay out of the sun while they're living on a tropical island. While you go there on a vacation trying to get a tan, these people are trying to shade themselves from it. Of course, in America, you'll see a lot of blacks do this and stay up under shade trees and so on too, but that's different kind of because their skin is so dark they actually absorb the heat, and blacks are more subject to having heat strokes than anybody in America. And you can imagine, if you've ever had a black car, you can tell how hot that thing is when you get in the middle of summer, especially if you have something like a Texas summer. We're hitting 106 with a heat index of 132. Then you get in a car and the thermometer says error. Yeah, and you stick to the seats. You know what I'm talking about? But she mentions that she gets tan, and she's real proud. Well, I get real tan in the sun.
If they will get dark, they will hate themselves and they are afraid of getting bullied. And as for me, I am proud that my true color comes out when I'm exposed to the sun.
She's proud of her true color, that she tries to put herself on the top of the caste system. And I was born this way, but I do get tan. Is this a pandering moment from Filipinos?
Because I am proud that I am part Negrito.
So she said that the indigenous people of the Philippines were hunted because of their dark skin, right? And she mentioned that these people still live up in the mountains in the Philippines today. They choose to live away from, the other people, right? And
so blacks hearing something about a dark-skinned people being hunted, oh boy, they're going to lose their mind, because we was. In fact, you're going to hear her say we after this point, because of her attachment right then, and start saying we about people she's not related to, didn't know existed, and in fact before this video didn't know they really existed. But in a moment she's going to claim, I'm researcher, I'm down rabbit holes, I'm deep y'all, but didn't even know this. Crazy. It shows you what Afrocentrics try to look into and don't even look into.
And she literally said, those are the indigenous people. Those are the original Filipino people, and they were being hunted. And now they live apart from the rest of us. So if those are the indigenous people, who the hell is y'all, right?
Well, there are a mixture of people that are from a couple of different Oriental strands mixing into those islands, with not just the Negritos, but other people that were endemic to the islands too. Yeah, that have that tannable skin that she's talking about. Yeah, and then the Spaniards came in, and Portuguese and so on. So who is y'all? They're the mixed people that live there. Yeah, and I can't wait for her to try to show you what Negritos look like, but let's continue.
But then I was like, let me just go look up the Negritos, right? Just out of curiosity, right? Now, what I was expecting was to see people who were, Asian, who happen to have like some brown skin, how a lot of Indians look today, or like even like Southeast Asians, there are Filipinos with brownish skin and stuff, right? And some Indians are even dark skinned, right? That's what I was expecting, to see people who...
Well, she was expecting to see Filipino type people. Instead, she actually looks up something totally different, because there's no word Philippine in any of her pictures. And did she actually look up even a wiki article? No, it's just pictures. And I can tell you now that there's no way that I could type in Philippine Negrito and get the pictures that it shows with her. We'll get into that in just a second.
Who were clearly Asian, but they had brown skin, because that was my understanding of the migrating out of Africa, that by the time we got to Asia, we were no longer black. They'd evolved into something else.
So here's the attempt. By the time you heard it, by the time we got into Asia, then we magically turned into somebody else. This is the real mental issue here. It's one of those key point notes. For Asia is actually the step out of Africa. You're stepping onto Asia. So I don't know how quick you think this happens. Or if you could actually step over that boundary and then walk towards Asia, and by the time you got there, you've turned in from a Negroid person into an Asian person that has a genetics that shows they never were. Asian DNA shows no connection to sub-Saharans or Negroids in any way, but she is trying to pull off the concept. We went out of Africa and magically changed into Orientals and Europeans, and later in the video she's going to say Amerindians. Here we go.
Yo, look at these people. These are literally black people. There ain't no confusion about it. Ain't no, oh, you know, that person is like semi-between.
If you look, every picture she has here talk about Amerindian tribes of the Andaman Sea off of India. Now, while you look up Negrito, and it'll show you a span of people that at one time got called Negritos, which just meant little black people. So these people on these islands get called that, as well as islanders, as well as the people of the Philippines, which are also diminutive people. So you can see how that's connections, but given the opportunity to look up Filipino Negrito, she balks. She looks up Andaman Islands and tries to find these people as dark as possible. Key point here is these people are not related to Negroids in any way, shape, or form. Just because they have a dark skin, that makes blacks connect onto them. It's got to be, right? It's got to be. Well, it's not. But that's what she wants to show, is these people.
Between blackness and age, they like the missing link evolutionarily. You know, no, it ain't no, oh, you know, that's an Asian person, they just still have dark skin or whatever. No, these are black people. These are black people.
No, they're not. Because it sounds like you're trying to say these are Bantu people or these are Negroid people. Now, if you want to broad sense it and say black people are all called Negroids, which at one time they tried to be, then they realized they had no connections. They were smaller too, so they went Negroid, and the only connection is to the Pygmies, not the Bantus. Even with that, which they found out later isn't true at all. There's no connection between them, and the genetics stepped up the plate and went, "You are correct, sir. There is no connection." But the name's still there because they are a little black people. But whenever you say black people, it's different than what archaeology or anybody else would say whenever they're referring to a dark-skinned people. And if you actually looked up Filipino Negrito, oh, let's just do that right now. So I'm going to look up Negrito, and I want to see if I get the same picture she did. Oh no, I didn't. What is it I'm getting? Well, I'm getting these people, which do look like a missing link situation, that they're part black, part Asian, part islander, nature boy situation, very primitive. Does it not look exactly like that? It's hilarious that she said, well, I looked at them and I can't find any like that. You didn't look up Philippine Negrito or even look up Negrito at all. You looked at a little picture thing and thought you'd find something that matches your little idea. This is a Luzon Negrito with spear. You see all that body scarring on him? Never did tattoos. Tattoos don't really show up on these people. Body scarring all over them, but you can see the Asian eyes on that guy. Does it look kind of like a missing link now? The thing that you said doesn't exist and you couldn't find? All I did was look up Negrito. You said you were doing that, but you didn't. You went to a picture display first. Well, I'm showing the picture display here too, just to show you that as soon as you do look up Negrito, you're going to find these people that are apparently that missing link situation you're talking about. But the black component there is not related to you. She's already said we twice, hasn't she? I think she gets up to 5 or 6. But now if we look at this other picture here, we can see these people have a dark skin, but they don't really have a Negroid phenotype. It's not the same in any way. It's something a little bit different. And if we were to look up genetics, you'd get to the point here, oh, let me see if I can scoot that over here and give you an idea of, well, these Oceania, East Asia people are all over here to the right, way over here. And Olmecs and Amerindians get close to a connection that they have, but not that black component really. But we're looking at Proto-Malaysia, Sonoy, Negrito, and Andamanese. So this green right here is only the Negritos that are there. The people she showed are Andamanese and different. But now, hold on a minute. We have to go across the whole line of humanity from connections that hook up on this line all the way down to Europeans and Middle Easterns. In Central South Asia, Asia by the way is Caucasians, you really should go back to the term Oriental. I know white people that are SJW freakouts said that that's something bad. No, that's true. It just means Far East. It's like Occidental means Far West. It's no big deal on that because they live in the Far East. And in fact, if somebody said Far Eastern, ding, 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 you know exactly what I'm talking about. But now, who's the farthest away on the cline of humanity from these island people? Well, up this other cline that's not even attached is these sub-Saharan African people. How telling. But she's already said we because she knows they have black skin somehow. So that's got to mean her. I mean, doesn't it? Because she keeps saying we and referring to black people that did something that they never did. In fact, her premises here are that black people came out of Africa and walked up to Asia, and she said it. As they were walking up there, by the time they got there, she thought they just turned into Oriental people. But apparently, evolution would take a whole lot longer than that because there's some dark-skinned people up there. So she can't cognate that that's not the way that all these Caucasians and Orientals formed, which she just proved in her own self. But also, she's got that we attached to people she's not related to and didn't know existed and really didn't understand or know about them until apparently she looked this up. That's what she said, not me. So if we look at these guys, they tell you that Negrito means little black people. There's all kinds of people like the Ong and the Jarawa tribe and the Andamanese that used to be referred to by this, and that's what she showed, rather than the Philippines, which down at the very end of the list they say, well, there's also 30 other officially recognized ethnic groups that are all different from each other in the Philippines. So where's this one Negrito people that are hiding in the mountains? And oh no, that's not true at all. Well, who's been telling her all this BS? Well, even the locals there don't even have a really good idea, apparently, to it. So most groups of designated Negritos lived as hunter-gatherers. Today, most live assimilated to the majority population of the respected homeland. Discrimination and poverty are often problems caused by their low social position and their hunter-gatherer lifestyles, whereas the other ones have been taken into a modern time. Isn't that crazy? So they even tell you that down here there are tales in the Taiwanese indigenous people and so on like that of these type people. And then we know about the ancient Hobbit type people that were in the islands of Flores that aren't too far away from there. And there are people that live there that say they still see those little people that are actually littler. They show something that's 3 foot tall at best. Not a 4 foot tall or a little bit taller of these guys. And they act like they still exist. People have gone looking. So let's go back to her and her little idea of what she's trying to say. Oh, I was going to show you Philippine Negritos, these pictures here. Why is it that these people don't look like the ones she tried to show earlier? Why is it these people are in a tartan cloth, loincloth, at best. Why is it that these people aren't related to West Sub-Saharans a bit, but West Sub-Saharans keep claiming we somehow? Here it says it feels like there's a race war brewing with the Negrito people somehow. Here we see Negritos that you can tell they just put little bleachy spots in their hair and lighten their hair. Apparently that boy there got most of the stuff and the girls only got to rub a little bit on the tips. They've all got that decent hair going on, but then there's two in the back left-hand corner that have that fuzzy. That's crazy. This doesn't look at all like the ones you were trying to show as far as Negritos go. It's odd you would try to show a picture of other people when you're trying to talk about Filipinos. Or were you not? And is she a Hotep and just too past it? Well, you're going to find in a minute she's going to equate this all into the idea that black people were the original Amerindians. She is going to try that.
Say goodbye to tedious wire connections and messy soldering. Try our revolutionary product, water.
Let me tell y'all something. I'm really not into conspiracy theories. I don't know. I just feel like they're a waste of time, right? But sometimes the stuff just lines up in a way that you like, that's not just at people.
Now here she is again looking at the same non-Filipino type people, trying to point at them and say black people. She's got them big eyes too. Oh my gosh, she's believing this.
These are black people. Y'all, my mind just got blown.
Here she is flipping off Jesus. Here she is so happy that white people fought and died to free her people. Yeah, it wasn't white people that started slavery or anything, especially not in her country, but we're the people that ended it. Well, no, not in her country. They still enslave people to this day, and they'll admit that they were the ones that captured and sold off their own people. But, oh yeah, got this black power type situation, BLM, what a nightmare that's become. But she's proud. So, you can tell that she was just able to fall off the Hotep truck real easy here. She was right there, trying to play it all, but she didn't have nothing to stand on, so if they want to make this fake thing that you can stand on up, we was everybody. We were all over. She's going to tell you in a minute they built the Great Wall of China. And if you think I'm making a stupid joke, wait for a minute.
I don't care how stupid I look. I don't. Because I know for a fact that most people thought about this the same way that I did. Most people had an understanding like, oh yeah, clearly like, you know, the first people were black and then we migrated out of Africa. And by the time we got all the way to Asia, we was Asian by then, you know.
Nobody that's black ever came out of Africa. It's not that black people walked out of Africa and then all of a sudden we just became Asian, so we as Asians. It doesn't work that way at all. The people that came out don't have genetics that attach to you. In fact, 19% of your DNA still, after all the admixing and things, still 19% of it's showing you this unknown hominid that no one else has, including Orientals, Islanders, Negritos, actually no one on the planet, including East Africans, Nilotics. No, you're the one. You're the one that isn't even attached to the other black people that are in Africa. Like a land of the lost, a small little spot caught up in the Congo jungle that didn't have any interaction with other people. But that's the truth versus your idea that we just went lollygagging out of Africa, and as we walked to Asia, which if you get a step out of Africa, you're in Asia, showing you, well, she's a researcher, she's science, like she's going to be telling you in a minute. I don't think so. And you in geography either, or common sense, or a lot of things. Starting to think that recent diploma was more about affirmative action, but did you hear affirmative action has been outlawed as being racist and illegal by the Supreme Court? I'll probably have another separate video on that. Don't want to go into it here.
No, we were no longer black or whatever, right? I had no idea that we was literally still black people in Asia. In fact, to this day, the indigenous people in Asia are literally black. These are not...
She said we again. I think we're up to 5. But now she's saying the indigenous people that live in all of Asia are black. Whenever you take a step out of Africa into the Levant, you're in Asia. And Anatolia is Asia Minor. All that's Asia. Afghanistan people, you think that's Asia, you think those are Oriental. You have a problem with realizing Oriental or anything else. Just like that other girl kept trying to put in Chinese people for some reason. But that's probably because she's part that. So she added it in all 3 times, didn't she? She's going to say we again. You know it.
Not people like, I know there was one group of people, and I forget who they're called. If y'all can remember, go ahead and drop it in the comments. But there was a group of people, and I think they were taken to Asia from Africa as slaves or something, right? So
taken into Asia from Africa, all you got to do is walk out over the border of the Nile Delta, and you're stepping into, no, it's not Europe, that's above the Phasis River over here. You'd be walking into Asia. She's trying to say that they took some black people to the Orient. I think they all were castrated and used for slavery, and then after doing that once, twice at best, they were like, oh hell no, we aren't doing this. They don't like black people over there in any way, shape, or form. They don't put up with the bullshit. And in fact, whenever you find Disney making all these movies, they have to go through a bunch of hoops to even get it shown over there. A lot of times now, they're just dissing it totally. Especially whenever you're trying to show the Little Mermaid and then you make her black. They're like, man, my daughter was looking forward to that. Whoops.
So they're black people, but they're not like the indigenous people, and they're still black to this day. Like they live like in the forest or something, secluded by themselves because they were hiding from the slave catcher, something like that, right? No, it's not.
Something like that, but I'm going to put the worst thing out there. They're trying to hide from the slave catcher. Were the Philippines ever taken slaves or anything like that? Were they going to take little 4-foot tall people that don't have any strength and try to make them slaves out of it? No. But I'm going to try to make up crap. That's all we got going on, see, is slavery and dumb, so I'm going to throw both of them at it.
Not like that. No, these are the indigenous people of Asia, and they black.
And they ain't black. They have dark skin, but they're not you. They're not related to you. And as you're showing yourself, you didn't know they existed until this point, although you as science, you as researcher, you know how this goes, but then again you don't, because you just showed, well, when I look up Negritos, I just look up pictures of Amazigh Islands as opposed to looking up Negrito, and you'll actually see that Asiatic twist that you just said you couldn't find, it didn't existed. What the hell is trying to be go on here? Well, in a minute she's going to claim we again.
Honestly, I owe a serious apology to all the conspiracy theorists and the Hoteps and everybody, because clearly this shit is much deeper than I ever fucking imagined. And that's crazy. Ooh.
Wow, so now she's apologizing to the lying non-biblical recent prims that try to claim everything. And she's already over the fence. But she was never on the other side of the fence. She was just sitting on this side of the fence yelling and talking crap and trying to call white people caves. Now she's just drifted away from the fence. So she's not apologizing to calling white people caves or apologizing for the fact that she's trying to claim Negrito or Filipino history or anything else onto it. In fact, she's not unapologetic. She feels strengthened and empowered in the fact that it's great, and something she should do is culturally appropriate Philippines or anybody else that's got any dark skin in the world. Now she's going to try to apologize for cussing a minute ago.
Excuse me, y'all, I'm supposed to not be cussing. But that's crazy because I'm already so much deeper into all of this history and research and everything than most people. And I said,
she deeper than, I'm deep. Dog, don't you know I'm so deep I don't even know what the fuck, and I don't know how to research. But I is deep, I is smarts now. I graduated. Here's one for you. I hope she gets a hold of this and tries to debate me down in the comments or anything like that. I got a question for you. You said you graduated with a chemistry degree. Is that what it was? Great. I didn't. But see if you can tell me what the difference between a covalent and a non-covalent bond is, and do not look it up or clip and paste it here. Just straight it right out like a normal human would. See if you can do that down below.
Say myself, as deep as I am into this, I have barely scratched the surface. It is so much deeper than I could ever know. And like this just blew my mind because suddenly this is a lot deeper than anything she knew. Well, this shows you that when black people think that they're all deep into something, that they haven't even scratched the surface. In fact, they've just made up a bunch of lies and they aren't even really looking into the truth of anything. They're just trying to make shit up. And here she goes claiming we again towards people that she's not related to, didn't know existed and so on, but she's all brand new, the newest Hotep at all. Oh, you're still waiting for her to claim Amerindians. Wait a minute. Suddenly, all them Hoteps and conspiracy theories who be talking about, yeah, actually we was the ones who built the Great Wall of China and so and so and so. Shit, maybe we did because the indigenous people.
Did you just hear her claim we was built the Great Wall of China? Well, shit, maybe we did. There goes we again. West Sub-Saharans have a real issue with this situation of claiming people, regardless if they're like the Egyptians and Caucasians. But if they're any black people, they feel totally entitled and want to pretend that they're related and they did something. Therefore, they start claiming people on the other side of the world pretty much from them, as far away as could possibly got at the time. And they're still claiming we was. Could there be a more pathetic display of jealousy, envy, and low IQ at once? Not really, but it's crazy. In this same moment, it's turned her into a Hotep. And if she hasn't claimed enough already with Andamanese Islands and everybody else that's got colors or whatever, and we built the Great Wall of China, she's fixing to claim Amerindians.
Well, these places was literally black. It wasn't like, oh, they got over there and evolved into something else. No, they was still black, bro. I have always said myself, y'all have heard me say this in YouTube videos before. If you know me in real life, I say this in real life all the time. I've always said, this gotta be a simulation because it makes no sense.
It's gotta be a simulation. She wants to say that she said, she graduated, by the way, these is black people, not no damn Asians. An African anywhere is an African everywhere. No, that doesn't make sense. That would be like saying, well, there's a black person in California, therefore blacks are in Maine. Don't you understand? What? In your words, this must be some kind of stimulation. Well, that's what it is it's a stimulation of lies and making them feel good and better about the situation. Just like in that book where we can't go home, where all this Afrocentric babble is just a way of making themselves try to feel better in the presence of reality. So I don't see even right here where she tries to point it out that she's doing what she's saying, but let's continue.
Sense why the world treats black people the way that they do. It makes no sense. White people went to all these people's countries, treated them horribly, yet these people still worship white people and whiteness. Me?
Yeah, they love the Caucasian spacemen that brought civilization to them and every single thing that they see in front of them and fly over them in planes and spaceships, cruise up to their island, gave them the boats the ability to start selling and trading and doing things that are made in the Philippines and all that other thing. Meanwhile, blacks are negative to their situation whatsoever, and all we really have here is West Sub-Saharan Bantus trying to claim we was, and she doesn't seem to understand while blacks are looked down upon. I'll tell you now, it's not skin, that's like 6 on the list, but before that on the list is you try to claim everybody's culture. Even people you didn't know existed as we. In fact, you're right in the middle of doing it right now, in the middle of a Hotep cargo cult.
While black people minded our business and they hate us. Like literally in this Filipino woman's video, she said, yeah, the Spaniards colonized us and we bleach our skin to this day because we want to be like them. But
no, she didn't say that. She said that she was light-skinned and proud of it, but she can get a tan. So we're not dark to this day. She said, I'm light. Did you just lie on that girl too that you tried to use the video of?
They was hunting the indigenous black people of the Philippines. Like, them indigenous people was minding their business, and those the ones y'all hunting. But
do you want to believe that they didn't try to attack the locals that were already changed over to a Caucasian belief and were trying to build cities and stuff and getting all their crap going and learning new crafting deals so they could become part of humanity, and then they got attacked by them or something? Because that would be exactly the opposite of what you're trying to say. Is it possible after the locals did all that, they knew there were a prim people that were so far from even their level that they were going to have a problem with them? Did they hunt them to try to bring them into the situation? One thing's for sure, you love that and get mad about it, but it ain't got nothing to do with you whatsoever. But you want to mention it, and you want to say we.
y'all love Spaniards and want to look like them and be like them. Like, whenever I hear something like this, because the Philippines is not the only place where this is happening, I'm like, this gotta be a simulation. This makes no sense.
Simulation, not stimulation. She said it correct. Well, perhaps some people would like to be more like a spaceman and not like they used to be recently, a prim, and they try to walk away from themselves. You see black people doing it all the time where they don't want to talk about West Sub-Saharan Africa a bit. They want to talk about any other black people and claim we, because there was really nothing going on in West Sub-Saharan Africa. So you have this issue, and she wonders why people don't like black people whenever she's in the middle of trying to claim we was Filipinos. So you can add this onto the list, make it number 12, because we was Greeks, we was Etruscans, we was Moors, we was the Caucasian Egyptians, we were the Caucasian people of the Bible, we was Shakespeare, Vikings, the Minoans, and the Amerindians. Wait for it, it's happening.
Yo, I don't care. I got goosebumps right now. Nah, this makes me think back.
She got goosebumps because I'm believing in a lie, and it makes me excited instead of knowing myself didn't know they existed. I is goosebumping.
Into that conversation I had with that African guy, and when he was like, oh yeah, that blue god that they worship was actually a black person, but they painted it blue because they ain't want to be worshiping black people or whatever. Now suddenly I'm like, maybe there's some truth to that. Because
see, all it takes is one thing, and to find out Negritos that aren't even related to you whatsoever used to live in the Philippine Islands, and next thing you know, you start saying we, and then you start believing things like that Caucasian with blue skin on there used to be black, but they don't want to show it. It's all a big secret against the black people. Yeah, that's what they try to pull. Just like whenever I showed recently, they tried to show the Caucasian Egyptian statues as Egyptians, Caucasian phenotype and everything, and their answer was they sanded it all down to try to take away its Negroid appearance. This wasn't one with a broke nose, people. This was straightforward. This was a statue of Hatshepsut. We have a bunch of them. And they tried to pull that bullshit. The reason you see Caucasians is it's all a big conspiracy against black people. You see the Bantu, non-biblical, pre-Neolithic people that didn't do any stonework built the pyramids. You see? Well, what could be worse than that? Well, if you could pick a people as far away in humanity as you are, well, where are they at? West Sub-Saharan Congo. Okay, farthest in the known world would be kind of diagonal across the whole of Eurasia, and like Filipinos. If you were to claim Filipinos, that would be the most pathetic thing that you could possibly attempt. Well, she's doing it, and she's going to tell you they went even farther. Wait for it.
Because the original people of India were black. If you look up these Negrito people, some of them is living in India to this day. These were literally black people. So now suddenly there's a cause for this claim. Because before it was like, why would Indians just randomly be worshiping a black person? But I mean, the original Indians